My name is Ashley, and this is Let's Talk Dispatch.
I do. You're gonna do it. Do it really well.
And I believe the world needs more dispatchers.
Around in the mud, blood, and beer.
Years that I'm not working 4th of July. 4th of July.
Hey, community policing, right? What about community dispatching?
So on this show, with the help of my guests, we will educate, empower, and support the heroes behind the headset.
Right.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode here on Let's Talk Dispatch with me, Ashley, from the Raspy Dispatcher. If you follow me on Instagram, you know I just did a hard switch from graveyard to day shift, and it's about week 3 into the change, and I honestly don't know how to feel about it yet. I think my body likes being on normal folks' time, but I still miss graveyard. I still prefer it at this point, but it is still early in the process. So I guess we will see at the end of the road what eventually I do prefer. On today's episode, I'm going to be talking with operations manager out at the City of Sugar Land Public Safety Dispatch, Amy, to talk about her experience in this line of work. Amy, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing well. Are you in your work week, or are you on your days off? Or
It's Monday, so I'm Monday through Friday.
Ooh.
And really Monday through Thursday. I work 4/10s. But yeah, it's my Monday.
Awesome. Well, happy Monday. Hopefully it's smooth sailing from here on out. I'm day 2 into my weekend, so I actually got 3 days straight off this week. So I'm I'm keeping that. That's wonderful. all the scheduling shift is all done by me. You know, I'm my own worst overtime enemy, but I'm really valuing the 3 days in a row off this week.
Nice.
It really, really is. I remember when I first got into dispatching, we did 10s at my department. So we got that 3 days off. And I remember just being like, wow, like this is 3 days? This is amazing, right? And then we switched to 12s, and I was like, 4 days every other week? And when I have to work a long week, it's only a short shift. Yeah, 12s is my favorite thus far.
Yeah, we have two different schedules. So we have some people that work, they all work 12s, but we have some people that work 2 days on, 2 days off, and then they work every other weekend. And then we have some that work the 4 on, 4 off, 3 on, 3 off.
Oh, okay. Okay, so do you guys sign up for seniority for that as well, or is that like whatever other?
So you just have to find someone on the opposite set to agree to work that with you. So if for whatever reason one of them decides that, hey, this ain't for me anymore, then they have to both go back to the regular schedule.
Okay, I like that. I like options in dispatch, especially in scheduling. I believe it's super helpful for folks. How did you get into public safety? What is your story?
Oh my gosh. So I was working at HEB in 2006, and I was taking my break, and I went into the break room and was reading the newspaper. That sounds so weird. Like it sounds so long ago. I was reading the newspaper, and I was on the phone with my brother at the time, who at that time worked at the jail. So I was talking to him on the phone, and I was like, oh, you know, Taylor County is hiring for dispatchers. And he's like, dude, you should do it. And I'm like, whatever, I could never do that. So at the time, my twins were 2 years old. And I was like, okay, you know what? I'm going to try it. It's got benefits, all that good stuff. So let's try it. And I got hired, and it was like, I mean, I remember the day that I got the call, I bawled my eyes out because I was like, holy smokes, I actually get to have insurance and all that good stuff that comes with having a big girl job. But
I hear that.
That's how it all started. That was in 2006.
You know, that's so true. Like I remember when I first got into dispatching as well. I went and I bought a couch. It was like a $1,200 couch, and I would just got released from training, and I was able to sign up for overtime. So I kept signing up for a lot of overtime. And my supervisor was making fun of me. They're like, why are you here? I was like, I got to pay for the couch. I have money now. I have a way to get more money to pay off this couch real quick. So here I am ready to work.
That's good.
But it is so true. And I definitely want to talk about how you said your kids were 2 when you kind of started. And I think a lot of people who are just getting into the research of what this job looks like, especially their family homes and their family lives. How did you manage having 2 young kids throughout training? Because I think that's a big hurdle that people with young families are trying to juggle when deciding to get into this career.
Yeah, so I was very grateful to have my mom actually living with me at that time. So she took care of my girls, and I don't ever remember them really being a struggle because I mean I had her
That's awesome.
with me. So my training, I was able to focus on my training. So I'm really grateful for that. I didn't have to struggle in that area, thank God.
Awesome. So, I mean, simply like finding that support, like whatever that looks like, because
Yes,
it all looks different for all of us, right?
for sure.
But I think everyone's home life is different, but I do think that for folks who are considering, there are so many more positives after you get through that weird phase of training and the benefits. I mean, the benefits and the pay, I mean, is definitely one thing that I think is enticing for people in this line of work.
Yes. And I think knowing in the beginning, like when you first start at this job, like knowing what type of stress the job is going to bring you. And because we have 4 new recruits that started today. Today's our first day. And, of course, I have mentioned it before in the hiring process, but I told them again today, it is a stressful job. It's very taxing, mentally, emotionally, physically. It's just a hard job. And you just have to be ready for that. And to have that support at home is extremely important. But yeah, like I tell them all the time, I'm like, look, you guys, like we try to make your days here at work worth it because we know that it's a stressful job. And not only that, like you have stress outside of work also. So, I mean, it's just stress on stress on stress, but that's why we try to really make sure that our people are taken care of here.
That's amazing. So what do you remember? So I feel like you're the manager of your center, right?
I'm the operations manager.
So you've gone pretty much from, like line worker all the way to a pretty high supervisory position. Looking back at your process and your journey, like what was it like in the beginning for you, maybe compared to now, being someone who's supervising the folks that were, where you started, basically?
So I always felt like I was really good at the job. I really put my all into the job all the time. It wasn't just a job to me. No matter what phase I was in my career, it was never just a job. I knew it was extremely important and I had to put my all into it. But so when I started here in Sugar Land, I started as a shift supervisor. On October 1st is actually my 10-year anniversary here.
Hey.
Yeah. So I started as a shift supervisor. I had never been a shift supervisor before. So it was really hard to get through not only just the training of learning a new agency, but also learning a new position. But I always tell people, when I train someone, I want them to have the passion that I had for the job. Because if you have that passion, you're going to succeed no matter what. And I was always the type of person that was like, I'm never going to leave the floor. I want to work the dispatch console for the rest of my career. And I was never the type of person that liked to do paperwork, stuff like that. And it was just that time in my life that I was like, okay, I want a new challenge. I want something else to work towards. I want to grow professionally. I want to be able to do more, not only for myself, but for the center, the people that I work alongside. I want to do more for you. And, those people that were kind of struggling with, it's just a job type thing, I want you to have the love for the job that I have for the job. So that's where it all came from, actually.
Yeah. No, that's amazing because we know it's no secret that there are some dispatch centers that, are a little toxic. They have some drama going on. Um, and a lot of times, like the folks who get blamed or who catch the brunt end of it are our supervisors, right? Like that's who we point our fingers at. That's who I believe have a great role in creating and protecting our centers
Yep.
and our environments, right? Because we as adults in our centers as well are responsible for the energy we bring, the way we act, things of that nature. But we don't really have power on making huge changes as far as other people's toxicity. You know what I mean? That's where our supervisors come in to protect us a bit
Yeah.
if there's something that needs to be addressed. So I think just like helping people learn how to use 911 and have a plan if they ever have to call 911 or they're just local department. Um, we in our centers, and I think from supervisory roles, need to create environments where we're preventative instead of responsive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So one of the things that I'm sure you've seen my Leaders Under the Headset page.
Mm-hmm.
So the whole reason that I created that was, one, because I was at a really not low place, but I was not motivated. And I needed to have something to keep myself motivated. So I told myself, okay, I'm going to create this Facebook page. And if I post something every single day and hold myself accountable to it, then, I can have that for myself to keep myself motivated. I'm in the EOC, so if anybody walks in, I'll just turn around and tell them, hey, I'm on a meeting.
No worries.
But so as leaders and as shift supervisors, we are responsible for the things that go on in our centers, on our shifts, on our time. We are responsible for that kind of stuff. Like, there's a quote that says the what you allow is the standard. That's the expectation. You're allowing it, so yeah, it's okay for people to do that, right? So that's one of the things that we talk to our shift supervisors about all the time, is that you guys have to be consistent across the board. You have to say something when your gut is telling you this isn't right. You have to hold your people accountable. And also, all the way from frontline personnel all the way up the chain, like, we empower our people to say something. You don't even have to be in a leadership position to look over at your coworker and say, hey, that wasn't very kind, or, hey, is something going on? You want to talk about it? I think that's one of the things that has really changed our center around from when I first started here, is us just empowering our people to say something and to be real with each other and to build relationships with each other. It's so important in this line of work.
It really is, and it makes like you said, the job's already hard, right? It just makes the job so much easier.
Yes.
When we're all being supportive of one another, and we're not bringing the small things that can really impact the center into our rooms, which is affecting everyone's vibe. Which I like to get along with everybody. Not everyone's gonna be best friends. We don't need everyone to act like we're all best friends, but we're coworkers, and we're teammates. I think at the end of the day, like, I played basketball growing up and in college, and I didn't like every single one of my teammates, right? But at the end of the day, we're all wearing the same jersey. We're trying to accomplish the same goal. And I think that's kind of the vibe we should have in our centers as well.
For sure.
Now, do you remember your first call for service? Like your first week on the job, or like one of the early moments you've had in your career?
I remember my very first 911 call when I worked at Taylor County, was I was brand new out of training, working on the night shift with a lady who had been there for 16 years at that time. So really she was, she was letting me do most of the work because one, I had just gotten out of training. I got to do it. I'm her partner. But my first 911 call ever was a mobile home explosion.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And there was a lady actually inside of the mobile home when it exploded, and it was, I'll never forget that call. It was nuts.
Wow.
But yeah, that was my first 911 call ever.
Oh my gosh. And when people obviously like ask what you do, like, oh, like what's the calls and this and this and that. And it's like it sometimes like I can't even remember my calls a lot of the times because they're just so like wild, like out of pocket, like just like people wouldn't believe me when I tell them the things that like no, people don't call 911 for that. Like, no. They do.
Yes, they do.
They do. And sometimes they're not receptive to being told like this is not a 911
Right.
issue, and I think that's one thing. Like if you're listening to this and you're like, I'm just here for the 911 tea, like I get it. You probably won't get too many because I think as dispatchers, we're so like burnt out with the level of just like confusion from citizens sometimes about what 911 is actually there for, especially since the majority of 911 is answered by the local police department and then dispersed out to whoever needs to respond.
Mm-hmm.
Is your guys' center like that? Or do you guys do all three?
We do all three.
You guys do all three? Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we do police, fire, and EMS. So yeah, we get it all. And
Oh my gosh.
it makes for an interesting day, that's for sure.
Oh, I talked to I have a per diem at my job who does both. She works on the fire side and then she like moonlights with us. And I had another coworker who worked at another agency who did both too. And do you guys have two different like operating systems when working with fire versus police? Like do your dispatchers have to learn two different systems or is it all kind of integrated?
It's all the same system. All the same system. We drop all of our calls in the same system and get dispatched in the same CAD system. And all of our dispatchers are able to work any position any day. So they can come in and work fire one day. They can come in the next day and be call take, and then the next day and be police radio. Or they could do anything two or three times a day. They're shuffling around, so they can do it all.
That's awesome. Yeah, we're dual dispatch. We're dual trained, but I only do police. But we do both radio and the call taking side of things. And it's so funny when you get into this line of work of how many different ways there is to do this job. Like my sistering agency out in Sacramento, they're split. You either call take or you do radio, and I've always been dual trained. So I just assumed that that's what everybody did, And then when CHP would transfer me calls, they were like, hold on, I'm on the radio too. And then they start clicking down the radio and I'm just like, I would never. Like, I don't know how someone's answering calls and dispatching radio. And now at my smaller agency, there are times where I have to do that because the phones are just so busy, right? Mm-hmm. So now I'm in it. Now I'm living that new reality as a dispatcher. And there's just so many different ways to do this job. It's insane to me.
Yeah, I remember when I worked at my second agency, there were periods of time when we worked by ourselves. Because we worked 12s, but we weren't allowed to get overtime. So our partner had to leave at like 4 a.m. on certain days, just so they didn't get overtime. And I remember the one night, one of my partner had left at 4 a.m. and I was left there by myself. I swear she was still in the parking lot when I got this 911 call, and it was a stabbing. And then it was Valentine's Day or Valentine's night. I remember that. So I got a stabbing and I got a house fire at the same time.
Oh
And
my
I just
gosh.
remember thinking to myself, I'm like, I know she's in the parking lot. Let's get to her.
Right. We have a PA at my department. To dispatch, please. Come back.
Yeah, it was nuts. Like, still, I don't like coming from that agency. Remember there were days whenever I had to work by myself during a day shift because my partner called in and they weren't calling anybody in. Like, it was just me for the day.
Mm.
The lady from records, would come in and field calls if she needed to. But I remember just being on my own, and it was like, oh my gosh, this is such a huge liability.
Mhm.
I can't I remember when I came here to Sugarland and I was like, you mean there's people working with me? You mean I don't have to do it by myself? But yeah,
Right? Yeah. Like it's I mean a two minimum. I mean and two sometimes even rough because when you have two, you still get left with what? Like we have to use the bathroom,
yes,
stretch our legs, get some air because there's never an open window in a
right,
comm center. We can never have a place that can open a window.
right,
Like we need to do the natural things that humans do
yes,
during 12 hours.
yes,
And yeah, sometimes the staffing isn't there for it. And then, you know, um, you feel guilty leaving your partner. There's this time where I ran down to grab our DoorDash and I came back and the place was on fire, and it, and that was just literally running down to get food and come back. And it's like,
yes,
oh, there's 6 calls on hold. There's a call we need to dispatch. And it's like, what happened? Like, I only went down the street, like down the stairs to grab the food. I don't, but that's how dispatch is. And I swear they always come in twos.
yep, all
Like,
the time.
it could be crickets, and then all of a sudden the phone rings like, all right, I'm about to knock this out. And then 911 drops. You're like, oh, okay, hold on. I got to put you on hold. Oh,
Yeah,
someone stabbed? Okay, hold on. And then you're going, like it's never one at a time. It always comes in twos, I feel.
yep, that's for sure. We're always like, who said it? Who said the word?
Right? Oh my gosh. My partner right now is good for just looking, staring at me and saying it. And I'm like,
Mm-mm.
just disrespect, just nothing but disrespect. So I am very familiar with your Leaders Under the Headset Facebook group. So for those who don't know about it, definitely check it out. Lots of great information being put in there all the time. That's honestly how we connected for this show. Is I shot my shot out there on the Facebook page, and you are happy to oblige. So thank you
Yes,
for being willing to jump on. But I definitely do think that there's a lot of great information in that Facebook page offered by so many people.
yes,
Um, and I think sometimes on these Facebook groups, again, if you're in these Facebook groups, we can find that toxic environment as well. But this group specifically is geared for folks who want to be empowered and want to fill up their tool belt, their toolbox, and bring it back to their center.
yeah. That toxicity ain't happening on my page. I see, some of those pages, I'm like, I just cringe so much because I'm like, oh my gosh. And I try to throw out some positive comments like, just be the change or something like that, because I'm like, you guys don't, it all comes from just not knowing, because I can look back. I will admit there were, years ago whenever I get my Facebook memories and I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I even posted that. Like, why would I do that? But it just comes with growth, growth and knowing what leadership really is and how you need to, be showing yourself online. Because once it's there, it's there. And it just makes it not only looks bad on the person who's posting it, but the agency and, yeah, some of those pages, I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this. This is awful.
Yeah, for sure. What advice would you give someone who is stepping into the role of a supervisory position from being someone who's not a supervisor? Because I think that in itself can be a little challenging because the power dynamic shifts a bit.
Mm-hmm.
So what advice would you give someone who's trying to navigate that without, for lack of a better word, damaging the relationships they built while in the regular position with their coworkers?
Yeah. So I know from experience coming into an agency, not knowing anyone and being in that shift supervisory position, you just have to be confident, and you have to, stand your ground, and you have to keep learning. But from seeing several of my staff promote into a shift supervisor position, it's basically the same thing. You have to stand your ground. You have to know your stuff. Can I cuss on this show?
Oh, please.
Okay. Like, you have to know your shit, basically. Like, know your policies and procedures. If somebody asks you a question, you don't have to know it right off the bat, but you have to know where to find it. One of the big things about being a supervisor is that people have confidence in you and that they trust you. And you have to show them that you are in that position for a reason. So be confident in yourself, and don't ever think that you can't be that change in an agency, because I promise it can happen. I got an email not too long ago about a lady who had gone to Joe Serio's ranch, the leadership at the ranch in Bandera. And, he talks about Sugarland and how we have, have this really positive culture. And she said, P.S., I think a lot of people are really jealous of your agency. And I'm like, I don't want people to be jealous of our agency. It took us a long time to get to where we are right now. I mean, it took years. It did not take 1 or 2 years. It took several years. But I don't want people to be jealous. I want people to know that it can be done. And I want, people to feel like I can be that person that can make that change. It's going to take some sacrifices. And it's probably going to take me being shut down more than 4 or 5 times. But I have to know what I'm talking about. I have to know what my expectations are. I have to own my mistakes and own my job. But yeah, it's like, you can do it. You can make the change, and you can be that positive leader. And even if you're not in a leadership position, you can still be a leader. And it takes your supervisors and, leadership team to empower you to do that stuff.
So true. If you are not in a leadership role, you can still be a leader. That's so true, because we're definitely, like I said, responsible for the environments we're creating. And like, even let's say I'm in a room and I'm the third, and it's a training team on the other, I'm not a trainer. I'm not training that person, but my presence in the room and my ability to interact and create that environment for that trainee is going to help that trainee be successful.
Totally.
Yeah,
because they see you doing the job, and they see, okay, this person's not my trainer, but they're doing really good at the job. They are performing well. So they're watching you. Everybody's watching you if you're doing your job and you're doing it well. But you can be of help to that person, because I promise you, they're watching you. So you want to be able to make sure that you're doing everything right.
Exactly. So you said you had four trainees starting today, right? What does your process for training look like? Because obviously, dispatch shortage is a real thing. And I think more and more agencies, hopefully, are looking for successful ways to bring people on, get people on faster, get them trained faster, confidently. What does the process look like for you guys at your department?
So our training can last anywhere from 6 months to a year. And we have several times in the past few years looked at shortening our training program. But we want to make sure that our people are getting a sufficient amount of training. We don't want to cut any phases short. We want to make sure that we're giving everybody the amount of time that they need. So it really all depends on the person. Everybody trains differently. But we have our 3-week academy, which is what our new boots are starting today. 3-week academy. After that, they move into the next phase, which is the call taking phase. From there, they go to fire radio. From there, PD, and then they start ghosting. But one of the things that we've done in our training program, our training coordinator, his name is Larry, he implemented a new style of training to where like we work 12-hour shifts. So if you're in the call taking phase and you're working phones, you're going to have 4 of those 12 hours that you're working either police radio or fire radio. Because what we were noticing is that, okay, we're getting people through the call taking phase, cool. Then we're getting people to the fire phase, and then all of a sudden they can't do it. Or we're getting people to the police radio phase, and we've just spent 6 months on them, and now they can't make it through police radio. So they're getting a little bit of everything. And that way, when they do get to that next phase, they're already familiar with it. They're already familiar with the terminology, the requests, the voices. So that has proven to be, we've been successful with that, and it's really been great. So like if you're on fire radio, you're coming in, you're working a 12-hour shift, you're going to work fire radio for 8 hours and then 4 hours call take. So that way, when you do get to the end of your phase, which is ghost phase, we don't stick you back on phones and you're like, oh shit, I haven't had a phone call in like how many months? So you're still familiar with the phone calls. You're still familiar with the fire radio and the police radio. And now you get to implement all of it.
I think that's a really good way to do it, because we had a similar setup in the sense that we had an academy, and then we did phones, and then we did radio over the course of 18 months. Was like our probationary period, and you had that long to get through everything. And I remember going and doing radio when I got to the radio phase, and it was 12-hour shifts by that time, 12-hour shifts, 4 days a week, nothing but radio. And you just get burnt out a bit. Like your brain just stops processing at a certain point, and there's burnout. So I think your guys' method of switching it up and kind of sprinkling a little bit of everything throughout that shift is not only helping them get a taste of everything, but it's helping them stay interested and not, just be mundane doing the same thing for 12 hours, because it's tough.
Yeah, it's been very great for our training program. And not only do they get to have a little piece of the other action too, but it's like, it's almost like we can be able to gauge sooner if they're going to be able to do the job or not.
Yeah.
So it's been helpful.
Yeah, I think that's important both ways, right? Is as one thing that when I talk to people about the interview process is, yeah, we all want to put our best foot forward. We all want to say the right things to get the job, but it's also important that you're asking the right questions as well to see if this is a good fit for you. Right. Because it is a long process. You're 6 months to a year in just with backgrounds and application, and now you're in it. And then you're like, well, this isn't what I wanted, and this isn't a good fit. Now we both wasted our time.
Right.
And now you're in this job that you don't want to do, and you're job searching, and we're putting all this time and effort into training you, and then you're just hanging on until you get something else. Like, that doesn't feel good for anybody. We want to staff our centers with folks who want to work and do the job and learn and be excited about it. And so I think that's an important part as well, making sure it's a good fit both ways.
Yes, for sure.
What advice would you give someone who's considering a career in dispatch?
Do a sit-in, not just one sit-in, but several sit-ins. Do your research. I know, one of the things whenever I interview somebody, I love it when they come in and they know about the job, not having any experience. So do your research about what the job really is. And I think honestly, the only way that you can do that is to go sit in a center and, actually learn from the people who are doing the job.
I think one thing like people don't realize is there are sit-alongs.
Yeah.
You know, everyone's familiar with, oh, ride along. I can go ride along with a cop, an officer, fire station. But no one thinks that they can sit with dispatch and hear our side of the job. But it's true. I think most departments have the applications. I know ours is like on our website, where you can go fill it out to get approved. You can't show up. You gotta go through a soft background process. But yeah, like a sit along is life changing if you're trying to figure out if this is something you really could do.
Right. Yeah, we recently reached out to the school districts in our area and sent them a flyer to get to the students so the students could sign up for sit-alongs too. We do anywhere from 16 and up. We also broadcasted the flyer on our police Facebook page and our fire Facebook page. And I've had so many people inquire about doing sit-ins, and I scheduled just 3 of them this morning for the upcoming months. And one was just a lady that was like, I'm not looking for a job. She says, but as a curious mom, I would love to come in and just sit and watch how you guys work. How does the 911 center works? And I'm like, of course, come on, you're more than welcome. I think we had a 17-year-old come not too long ago, and he absolutely loved it. It's so interesting for them to get to see what the job is all about.
It really is. And I mean, when we talk about, especially in recent years, it's, bridging these gaps with the community and repairing relationships between, police departments and the community. Dispatch, we do have a role in that, as we are usually the first point of contact for the citizens and the respective departments, whatever service they're needing. So if we provide them a poor experience in that first initial contact, that damages the relationship. And that might only be the only time that person calls 911 in their lifetime. And it was a poor experience, or the fact that you're getting opportunities out to your guys' community, the citizens you serve, for them to hear the things we deal the things we deal with, because we're never talking to the rational person that in your life. Like that person that you picture is not the one calling us at work. We have the irrational people that have these expectations that we can't meet. And if the world could sit on our centers and listen to the calls, the majority of the calls we have to field, I think there would be a better understanding for the things that we're dealing with as dispatchers, as 911, first responders.
Right. One of the things we do with our new PD recruits and our fire recruits, we have them sit in dispatch. We give them like an hour and a half long presentation where there's some interactive stuff that it's like there's a little game we play that's called Can You Be a Dispatcher, or something like that. But we do that with them, and if they get it right, whoever gets it right at the end, we're like, okay, if you don't make it in PD, you can come work with us.
We are always hiring.
Yeah. But we do that with them. We go through the hour and a half long presentation, and then they go sit with our dispatchers for a couple hours. And some of them, like we just got some new people from out of state, and they were like, wow, we had no idea that you guys did all of this stuff. And we're like, yeah, like we try to tell you guys, we're not just like sitting up here watching, YouTube or, whatever. We're actually doing stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But it's important for them to know our job so that, they can show a little grace whenever they're out there. And, we tell our dispatchers too, we're like, when they come up over the radio and they don't, give you a chance to respond and they just blurt out this stuff, you have no idea what they're dealing with out there. So you always have to be on your game and on alert. And, if something happens and they don't have a chance to repeat to you again what they just said, you have to be alert and prepared to copy down that information, because who says they're going to be able to give it to you again?
It's true. It's very true. I definitely think that there's obviously battle sometimes between the field and dispatch. And, that at the end of the day, that's really all it is giving each other grace. Like, we're both humans on the other side of these radios, and my radio traffic isn't going to be perfect. Your radio traffic isn't going to be perfect. I always like to think that, whenever my officers, eating their mic or, shotgunning something, that it's not personal. Like, I'm going to give you that feedback. Like, I'm going to need you to slow it down, like whatever, but it's never personal. And I think if we can remind ourselves of that a little bit more often, we're going to have better relationships with the folks who are out there in the field.
Yes, that is so true. We try to get our dispatchers to participate in training with our fire and our police folks all the time, because not only do we want to show them what we're doing, but it's important for us as dispatchers to know what their job is and what their responsibilities are when they're out there on the street too.
Exactly. And I think that I had an officer one time tell me, my old agency, they were complaining about another dispatcher, and they were like, they're like, they shotgun dispatch us. They just, once we go available, they're throwing us on the next call. And, he was, venting. And I was like, well, that's kind of a job. He's like, but I just got punched in the face. Like, I need a second to breathe, and I was like, okay, like,
I get it.
Yeah. So, like, it's just one of those, we can nitpick all day, like, well, your sergeant should have made sure you weren't available and da da da. But
Right.
I think that's one of those realities of, like, there's a little bit of a disconnect, because it's like, oh, you're available, but it's like you just took a fatal. You know what I mean? Like, you might need a moment,
Time. Yeah.
and so and that just comes from us having understandings of the job, right? Of the job they're out there doing and the job we have to do as dispatchers.
Right.
Like, once I dispatch you, it's yours. It's no longer mine. I did my job. So it's just funny that we need to work hard to work with each other to understand each other's struggles in this line of work.
Yeah, I've had some fire and PD personnel ask me, if there's one thing that you want us to know about dispatch, what is that? And I'm like, well, I want you to know that when I'm sending you to a call, that's the only call you're going to. When we're sending you that call, we have multiple calls we're working at the same time. So, keep that in mind. If we, don't answer you right away, or, you're requesting something and we don't give you your return right away, chances are we're doing something else. We're not just ignoring you. We're not just, doing whatever. We have stuff going on.
So true.
Yeah.
And there's usually only one of me, or at best two, and my others doing something else.
Yeah.
I remember one of my officers put out traffic stop occupied by 5, and they're like, run them all out. And I was like, 5? We want every, okay, here we go, right? Like, hit me. And I don't know if the officers necessarily understand this. Like, every one of those, I'm getting 12 returns. 12 times 5. Everybody do the math. I'm terrible at it. And then you got to go through, and you're going to get, like, almost hits, and, like, you got to go, it's like reading another language. So I'm like, all right, 5, here we go. Let's do this. And then as they finished, like, the 5th person, I'm like, all right, let's get through these as quickly as we can. Another officer on views a fatal. It ended up being a fatal vehicle accident. And I literally went out, I said, your returns are going to be delayed. And then just shifted, because phones start ringing. We got to start fire. Like, and there's only 2 of us in here. So it's like, yeah, you're out with 5 people, and everyone was out there with them. So I wasn't worried about officer safety or anything, but it's like, well, we got to switch, so, and that's just how it is sometimes.
You're all, just run it in your car. I know you can.
Right? Just, you do the research. I'm not the detective here. Oh, so just bringing it to a close, how do you feel this job has changed you, your personal life, your professional life, kind of that last nugget you'd like to leave everybody with?
That's a hard one.
I like to bring the thinkers.
Yeah. I can honestly say that, man, I'm way more protective, I guess, of my family because I know what's out there and I know what can happen. Which I try not to. Like, I know I tell myself, okay, trust that God's on your side and everything's going to work out, right? But this job is tough, and I don't think I realized how tough the job was until I moved off of the floor into administrative positions. Because when you're on the floor and you're taking those calls, it's like you're just going through the motions and you're shutting your feelings off. You're just doing the job. You're doing what you know you have to do. And when I moved off of the floor into a quality assurance position, like sitting in my own office, listening to all of these high priority calls that I had to, listen to and QA, I was like, damn, I can actually like start feeling these calls. Like I can actually hear the emotion as I'm sitting here, what do they call it? Monday morning quarterbacking or whatever, making sure everybody's doing what they're supposed to be doing. But Larry, you're on the table? That's Larry, you guys. Training coordinator. But anyway, yeah, like take care of yourself. Like that is so important in this profession because things can go awry really quickly if you don't take care of yourself. And make sure that you're taking care of your coworkers and your people. Like one of the things we stress at our agency is like we are a family. Like we had, the whole discussion with our new people today. It was like we truly are a family here. People may like roll their eyes at that or whatever, but we really are. Our vision statement is working together as a team and a family, serving others as we would our own. And that is, we truly live by that. We can, be having a difficult time and everybody notices it because you're just not who you were yesterday when you were, having a good day. But just take care of yourself because it's a hard job. And like I said earlier, it takes a toll mentally, emotionally, and physically. And if you don't take care of yourself, you're going to get burned out and, bad things are going to happen. And like you said, we need dispatchers. So it's so important to take care of yourself and to take care of your coworkers, to make sure that everybody can be on their game at all times. Just look out for one another. That's what I would like to leave you with.
Definitely. Self-care is super important. Having that plan going in and building it with the folks that you're doing the job with.
Right.
I think that's amazing advice. Again, Amy, thank you so much for jumping on with me. I really, really appreciate it and enjoyed our talk. Again, folks, if you're looking for resources and a place where you can connect with other leaders under the headset, check out the Facebook group just by searching it on Facebook. And I'm sure you can search for Amy, LinkedIn, all of those resources. Is there anywhere else that they could reach you if they wanted to kind of connect with you about any resources?
Yeah. So I am always willing to give anything like training stuff, any of our policies and procedures, any of the things that we did to change our culture around. I'm so willing to give it to anybody who asks. Email, you send it through email or just say it here or what?
It's totally up to you. I can include any of your contact info in the show notes for anyone who's looking for that. I'll connect with Amy to see what the best way to reach her is, and I'll include all that information in the notes, and they'll be able to reach you there.
Sounds good.
Awesome. Again, thank you, Amy.
Yeah. Thank you.
Awesome. I'll be right back with you.
Okay.
All right. All right, everybody. That was another episode here on Let's Talk Dispatch. Again, thank you, Amy. We need more dispatches, but we also need more amazing, supportive supervisors and folks in leadership roles in our centers, creating these environments that we can excel in, the current dispatchers and the future dispatchers. Until next time, stay raspy, everybody. Thanks for joining us on today's episode of Let's Talk Dispatch. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube at The Raspy Dispatcher, follow us on Instagram, and check out Let's Talk Dispatch anywhere you listen to podcasts. I'll see you next time, and stay raspy.